Roman, Orton, and McAfee's heel power play, Raw's best and worst moments, Triple H done with Io Sky, Nikki Bella injury update, Bronson Reed injury news, WWE turning UFC, Mania 42 stage reveal. So subscribe and drop a like if you haven't already. Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, and Pat McAfee potentially aligning as a dominant corporate heel alliance is one of the wildest possibilities heading into WrestleMania season, and it immediately raises a simple question for you watching right now. Would you actually want to see these three power players run WWE together, or does that feel like too much control in one group? Now, shifting focus, let's dive into a refreshed look at the highs and lows of WWE Raw this week, because this episode wasn't just another show, it was the final stop before WrestleMania 42, and expectations were understandably sky high. So did it truly deliver in your opinion, or fall short in certain areas? This particular edition of Raw came loaded with star power, featuring names like Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Gunther, which already made it feel like a premium event rather than a weekly show. And throughout the night, there were moments that genuinely elevated the hype for WrestleMania in Las Vegas, but at the same time, not everything landed perfectly. So let's break it all down, starting with what worked best, beginning with a slightly reworked take on the clash between Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi. Because over the past few weeks, their rivalry has been built on pure chaos and physicality, with both men tearing into each other in repeated brawls that made their feud feel intense and unpredictable. But this time around, WWE slowed things down just enough to add some much-needed storytelling depth. And honestly, did you prefer this more story-driven approach or the non-stop action from previous weeks? Lesnar opened the show with authority, signing the WrestleMania contract while confidently declaring that he would end Oba Femi's rise before it even truly begins, which is classic Lesnar arrogance. But later in the night, Femi fired back with his own strong words, promising to conquer the beast in Las Vegas and kickstart his own era of dominance. And when you look at both sides, who do you think actually sounded more convincing heading into their match? Moving on to a more emotionally charged rivalry, Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer delivered another intense chapter in their increasingly personal feud, and this storyline has quickly become one of the most heated going into WrestleMania 42, especially after last week's brutal backstage assault. So the big question was always how Morgan would respond, and this week she didn't just respond, she completely snapped, taking things to another level by once again bringing Vaquer's family into the conversation, which instantly escalated tensions. And when the two finally clashed in the ring, the chaos spilled everywhere, even dragging WWE officials into the mess. And moments like that really make you wonder, do personal storylines like this make matches feel bigger to you, or do you prefer more competition-based rivalries? Next up, Gunther and Seth Rollins added a much stronger narrative layer to their feud. And if you were someone questioning why these two were even facing off in the first place, this episode finally gave you clarity, as Rollins directly confronted Gunther about his sudden aggression, only for the ring general to reveal that his issue was deeply personal, centered around Rollins calling himself the best in the world, something Gunther clearly takes offense to. And that shift in motivation instantly made their WrestleMania match feel more meaningful, because now it's not just about winning, it's about proving superiority. And after their heated ringside brawl, the anticipation only grew stronger. So let me ask you, who truly deserves to be called the best wrestler in the world right now? Another standout moment came with the long-awaited return of Rey Mysterio, and after weeks of uncertainty surrounding his condition, seeing him back on Raw was a major boost, not just for fans, but for the WrestleMania card itself, as it was quickly confirmed that he'll be part of the Intercontinental Championship ladder match, which instantly adds even more excitement and unpredictability. And considering his history in ladder matches, do you think Rey still has one more big win left in him, or is this just a nostalgic addition to the match? Wrapping up the highlights, CM Punk finally opened up about the real reason behind his hatred for Roman Reigns, and this might have been the most surprising character reveal of the entire build, because instead of the usual aggressive tone, Punk took a more honest and reflective approach, admitting that his resentment actually comes from envy, pointing out how Reigns seemed to get opportunities handed to him while Punk had to fight for everything. And that kind of vulnerability added a completely new dimension to their rivalry. While Reigns responded in a more controlled manner, admitting his own respect for Punk's connection with the audience, but still asserting his dominance.
And now that both sides have shown this level of honesty, does it make you more invested in their match, or did you prefer the more hostile promos from earlier weeks? Now, shifting gears to what didn't quite work, one of the more confusing elements was the presence of Solo Sikoa and his group on Raw, despite not being central to WrestleMania's biggest matches. And this raises a fair question. Why crowd the show with talent from another brand when there are already storylines that need more attention, especially when these same stars are set to feature prominently elsewhere? And doesn't that kind of blur the brand split even further? Another issue came with the WWE Women's Tag Team title storyline, which has strangely narrowed down to just 2 teams, despite originally involving 4. And while focusing on fewer teams can sometimes help storytelling, the sudden disappearance of the others feels odd, especially this close to WrestleMania. And it leaves you wondering, wouldn't even a short backstage segment have helped keep everyone relevant? The handling of AJ Lee and Becky Lynch also felt like a missed opportunity, because for a feud of that magnitude, not having both stars appear live on the final Raw before WrestleMania seems like a questionable decision. And instead of building that final layer of hype, fans were left with a recap package, which just doesn't hit the same. So do you think WWE underestimated how important that final face-to-face moment really is? Then there's the closing segment between Roman Reigns and CM Punk, which, despite its importance, didn't quite deliver the explosive finish many expected, as both men took a more subdued and reflective tone, rather than ending things with a dramatic confrontation. And while that approach added depth, it may not have been the right choice for the go-home show, especially when fans were expecting something more intense. So what do you think? Should WWE have gone with a full-blown brawl instead? Moving beyond Raw, concerns are growing around Io Sky's current position, as the former champion has seen her momentum completely stall at the worst possible time, going from a strong tag team run to being left without direction heading into WrestleMania. And with multiple losses piling up, it's hard not to question whether creative has lost faith in her, especially when she's not even officially booked for the event. And honestly, do you think this is just a temporary setback or a sign of something bigger? On the injury front, Nikki Bella's situation remains uncertain but hopeful, as she continues to rehab her ankle while aiming to compete at WrestleMania. And her determination to push through pain has already earned respect, but it also raises concerns about whether she'll be at full strength. And if she does compete, do you think she should take it easy or go all in regardless of the risk?
Meanwhile, Bronson Reed's recovery seems to be progressing faster than expected, with signs that he could be physically ready sooner rather than later. And while a full match might not be in the cards, his potential involvement in WrestleMania could still have a major impact, especially if interference plays a role in key matches. And if that happens, would you see it as a smart twist or an overbooked finish? Looking at the bigger picture, there's also an ongoing debate about whether Triple H is steering WWE too close to a UFC-style model, particularly when it comes to rising ticket prices, shifting creative priorities, and a perceived disconnect with fan expectations. And while some changes have brought success, others have sparked criticism. So where do you stand on this? Is WWE evolving in a good way or losing what made it special? On a more positive note, WrestleMania 42 preparations are already in full swing, with early rehearsals, heavy promotion, and massive stage construction all pointing toward a huge spectacle. And the level of effort going into the event suggests WWE is aiming to deliver something unforgettable. But does starting earlier actually improve the final product, or just add more pressure behind the scenes? Finally, circling back to that intriguing possibility of a new corporate faction, the idea of Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, and Pat McAfee joining forces under a larger power structure could completely reshape WWE's landscape, especially with subtle hints already being dropped on television. And if this alliance does become reality, it could mark the beginning of a new era dominated by influence and control rather than just in-ring ability. And with that in mind, do you think fans would embrace this kind of storyline or reject it outright? With WrestleMania 42 just around the corner, everything is coming together in unpredictable ways. And whether it's shocking alliances, emotional rivalries, or unexpected returns, the stage is set for a weekend that could change everything. So, as always, the biggest question is simple. Are you ready for it?